Ever heard of the basketball star who became a political lightning rod? Let's talk about Royce White.
Hi, I'm Leah, feeling pretty energized today and curious about our topic.
And I'm Garrett, equally excited to dive into this one. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
Today we're exploring the multifaceted journey of Royce White, from basketball courts to political platforms. It's a winding path with standout athletic highs, public disputes, and some very bold political choices. So, quick story. I went to a Big Three game a couple summers back. The Big Three is that 3-on-3 pro league with a half-court setup and a 4-point shot, featuring a bunch of former NBA players. Royce White was out there playing point forward, a forward who handles the ball and initiates the offense like a point guard. He stood out, with that mix of size and passing touch. And then after the game, he had that activist vibe in interviews too. It was this fascinating blend of hoops and heavier commentary that kind of stuck with me.
All right, let's set the stage for this one. Royce White is an American political candidate and former professional basketball player from Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's 6 feet 8 inches, and at the 2012 NBA Draft Combine, he measured with the widest hands in his class. He became a national name at Iowa State, got drafted 16th overall by the Houston Rockets in 2012, and later moved through the NBA G League, NBL Canada, which is Canada's top pro league, and the Big Three. He even tried professional mixed martial arts, or MMA, which combines striking and grappling. Then he pivoted into politics with a 2022 run for Congress and a 2024 U.S. Senate run in Minnesota.
A major thread in his story is mental health. He has generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, which is persistent and excessive worry that can affect daily life. Flying was a particular trigger. In the NBA, players can take close to 100 flights in a season. At Iowa State, he estimated he took around 20, and that jump matters. He asked for accommodations, including traveling by bus, and that became a point of contention with teams and a broader public debate about how pro sports handle mental health.
Let's dig into the timeline. In high school, he was a star. He won 2 Minnesota State titles, including an unbelievable 31-0 season at Hopkins in 2009, and he was named Minnesota Mr. Basketball. He had big-time recruiting buzz, played in the Jordan Brand Classic, and was ranked among the top power forwards in the nation. There was a legal incident in 2009 at the Mall of America where he later pleaded guilty to theft and disorderly conduct. He said he pushed a security officer in self-defense after being charged. That led to him leaving the University of Minnesota without playing a game and transferring to Iowa State.
Iowa State is where he exploded onto the college scene. In the 2011 to 2012 season, he became the only Division I men's player that year to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. That's rare because those categories usually split among different positions. He landed on the Naismith mid-season watch list, which is a National Player of the Year shortlist, and in the NCAA tournament, he helped beat the defending champs, Connecticut, then dropped a big line against Kentucky. After that season, he declared for the 2012 NBA draft.
Houston took him 16th overall. Media called him a mystery pick because the tools were obvious, but the off-court complexity, especially the fear of flying, was front and center. The Rockets agreed early on to let him use a personal bus, which was unusual in the NBA and honestly forward-thinking in some ways. But almost immediately, the relationship got complicated. There were disagreements about mental health protocols, the step-by-step procedures set up between a player and a team for treatment, reporting, and travel. He was assigned to their G League affiliate, refused the assignment at first, got suspended, then later reported and played some games, even as the bus arrangement continued.
Why did the D League, now called the G League, become such a flashpoint for him?
Partly because it intersected with the broader disagreement about how his mental health needs would be handled day to day. Assignments are common for rookies, but for him it touched the core question of whether the team's plan fit his condition and his travel limits. He was later traded to the Philadelphia 76ers, didn't make their roster, and was waived. In 2014, he had a brief stint with the Sacramento Kings. He appeared in 3 NBA games total, with very short minutes, and then it was over at that level.
Undeterred, he headed to Canada with the London Lightning in NBL Canada, where he flourished. He won the league MVP in 2017, set a triple-double record in a season, and led them to a championship with a near triple-double in the clincher. That showed how much his game could dominate when the environment fit. The ending there was bumpy, though. In 2018, he got an 11-game suspension during the playoffs after a verbal outburst involving an official and the league's deputy commissioner, which cut that season short. He later signed in Italy with Auxilium Torino, but didn't report, and that deal was voided.
Next up, the Big Three. He went first overall in their 2019 draft to the Enemies. First game, he got ejected after a fight with Josh Smith, who's a former NBA forward known for athletic defense and dunks. Still, he stuck around that league and later played for Power. Alongside that, he released a book called MMA x NBA, laying out critiques of modern sports, and then actually trained for MMA. In 2021, he made his professional debut at LFA 120, which is a feeder promotion that helps prospects build toward larger stages. He lost a decision, but credit where due, going from basketball to a pro fight takes serious commitment. Straight.
And there was activism woven through. In 2021, during a Big Three post-game interview, he called out the Uyghur genocide, which refers to widely reported human rights abuses against Uyghurs in China's Xinjiang region. He contrasted his stance with what he said was the NBA's reluctance to challenge China because of business ties. Moments like that built his image as outspoken beyond the court.
Then the political arc begins. In 2022, he ran as a Republican in Minnesota's 5th congressional district against incumbent Ilhan Omar, who's a Democratic representative. He was endorsed by Steve Bannon, a conservative media figure and former White House strategist, and he appeared on Alex Jones's radio show. Jones is a talk show host known for promoting conspiracy theories, which are claims presented as secret plots without solid evidence. White lost that primary to Cicely Davis. Axios reported he didn't vote for himself in that primary, which became a lingering optics problem. He later said he wasn't part of the Black Lives Matter organization, despite leading protests after George Floyd's murder. He drew that line between protesting and being tied to the group's leadership.
In 2023, he announced a U.S. Senate run in Minnesota for 2024, taking on Amy Klobuchar, a Democratic senator. He gained the Minnesota Republican Party endorsement in 2024, which is party support at the state level, though national Republicans kept some distance. His campaign leaned into anti-establishment themes. He criticized institutions like the Federal Reserve, which manages U.S. monetary policy, and he pushed cultural arguments rooted in his Catholic faith. He's of Mexican, Norwegian, Welsh, and African-American ancestry, and he sometimes connects identity and spirituality to his message.
Controversies followed. The Campaign Legal Center, an election watchdog group, filed an FEC complaint in 2024 alleging he misappropriated over $157,000 in campaign funds. The FEC is the Federal Election Commission, which enforces campaign finance law. He denied wrongdoing, and in our sources that complaint hadn't been resolved. The Daily Beast reported that after his 2022 loss, his campaign spent more than $1,200 at a Miami strip club and listed over $100,000 in transfers with no stated recipients or purposes. He denied improper use and said he reimbursed the campaign after the report, and he joked online that he enjoys the food there. That line went viral, but the spending questions stuck around.
There were also rhetoric flare-ups. A 2023 quote on Steve Bannon's podcast where he said women have become too mouthy circulated widely. Critics called it misogynistic, which means showing prejudice against women. He argued it was taken out of context. He also faced allegations of anti-Semitism from the Republican Jewish Coalition, a GOP-aligned group focused on Jewish interests. He rejected that label, saying his comments about Israel and post-war global institutions were political critiques. He defended Kanye West after West praised Adolf Hitler, which intensified criticism, and a resurfaced tweet saying the bad guys won World War II drew outrage. He later told Newsweek he meant post-war institutions like the UN or IMF rather than the actual combatants.
On the campaign trail, he also had viral misfires, like tweeting a Minneapolis drinking fountain map and calling it a crime map, which drew a lot of pushback. He won the 2024 GOP Senate primary, but lost the general to Senator Klobuchar. Afterward, he criticized the NRSC, that's the National Republican Senatorial Committee, for not backing him more. He then quickly floated a 2026 run. When Senator Tina Smith announced she wouldn't seek another term, he affirmed he'd run for that open seat. Around the same time, a court issued a 50-year restraining order involving his former wife and their son, which is a significant legal step.
And in 2026, he declared for the WNBA draft while claiming to be transgender as a challenge to league policy on transgender athletes. The WNBA is the Women's National Basketball Association. He framed it as a political protest similar to a move by former NBA center Enes Kanter Freedom. That action, unsurprisingly, drew a lot of attention and debate about eligibility rules and fairness in sports.
So here's a big, unresolved question. Back in 2012 with the Rockets, could there have been a better accommodation path that kept him consistently available without constant conflict? We're talking about protocols that cover treatment, travel frequency, and medications. He talked about side effects from drugs like Benadryl and Xanax that made him feel dulled, and he worried about dependency. The NBA schedule is brutal. It really is a logistical gauntlet.
Real talk, I think both sides had tough constraints. The team has to manage schedules, competitive integrity, and roster spots. He needed a plan that respected his health. I do wonder if the way disagreements unfolded publicly, like on social media, made it harder to build trust. Why go public instead of keeping negotiations quiet until a system was ironed out?
I hear that, but I lean toward teams and leagues pushing further, earlier, on mental health accommodations. The bus solution in the G League showed it could work in certain contexts. Maybe the NBA could have experimented with clustered travel, strategically missing some trips, or leveraging two-way roster flexibility even more. At minimum, clearer league-wide standards could have reduced the gray area so it wasn't just a team-by-team patchwork.
I also think his approach at times might have complicated things. Refusing a G League assignment initially, then playing, then stepping away, then returning. It's hard for coaches and teammates to plan around that. Maybe if communication channels stayed tighter and less adversarial, and if there was a shared plan for which flights he would or wouldn't take, things might have stabilized. That said, he did spotlight a gap that other athletes have benefited from since.
Either way, his case forced a conversation about personalized care in a travel-heavy league. I think that ripple is real. Future contracts across sports started building in clearer mental health language, and teams got more proactive about specialists, sleep science, and schedule adjustments. Not perfect, but trending upward.
In pop culture terms, his presence in the Big Three made him a recognizable figure even after such a short NBA run. His appearances with right-wing media figures like Steve Bannon, plus allies like Kari Lake, a conservative Arizona politician, Mike Lindell, the MyPillow CEO active in conservative politics, and sports commentator Jason Whitlock, helped solidify an outsider brand. That brand came with a megaphone, and fairly often, a storm of scrutiny.
What if the NCAA had granted him a 2010-11 eligibility waiver at Iowa State? Earlier continuity might have meant 2 full seasons to refine his pro habits, including a gradual flight plan with more exposure under controlled circumstances. Maybe by 2012, he might have had a stronger, data-backed routine that an NBA franchise could adopt on day one.
I could see that. Another season might have grown his leadership role even further. If scouts watched him thrive over a longer window, they might have invested in a more tailored onboarding process. Picture the Rockets, or another team, building a blended schedule with ground travel on regional stretches, selective flights with therapeutic strategies in place, and a standing travel exception for back-to-backs. If that keeps him on the court consistently, his on-ball creativity and strength could have carved out a long NBA career.
And if the NBA chapter blossoms, the downstream effects might be different. Maybe he still speaks out on human rights or institutional critiques, but from a steadier sports platform. Or maybe he never pivots as hard into politics in 2022 and 2024. It's one of those forks in the road where a bureaucratic waiver, just a form and a ruling, could have shifted the whole map. Stay curious, everyone.
And keep exploring new stories with us. Goodbye.